Welcome to the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. I'm Joey Calvo. Today our guest is Ferreira, born in Brazil, immigrated to the United States with his family at the age of 4, growing up in Pasadena, California. He attended California State Polytechnic University, Pomona, earning a degree in communications with a focus on journalism and organizational communication. Al, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having us on today, Joey. It's great to be here. So
okay. All right. So explain a little bit more about yourself outside of what I just said.
Well, I have spent my entire career in the nonprofit world, specifically at summer camps with young people. And I started working for the YMCA when I was just shy of 16 years old, some 45 years ago, and went off to summer camp, and I discovered, Joey, these are my people. Mm-hmm. and I just had a great time, being out in nature, learning things, and serving others, and just having a great time with young folks and peers in an outdoor environmental educational setting. And it's just been a fantastic time. You mentioned I lived in California. I ran 2 camps in Southern California for the YMCA, and then I ran one in Florida. And then we ended up in upstate Western New York with another YMCA camp for about 8 years. Mm-hmm. And then I finished out my career with the Scouts, working with them for a few years, and here I am. So it's been a lifetime of service, Joey. I've worked with my number is about just over 54,000 kids at summer camps throughout the United States, and it's just been an incredible time. So the best part of it, Joey, is not only did I get to work with kids, but young people, high school, college age, into their 20s, who in this kind of bifurcated mission of serving youth, but also developing leaders. And I learned the hard way that servant leadership was really the way to go when being a leader. And it just really made a huge difference in my life.
Okay. And you came out with a book called Service from the Heart. Can you explain about that?
Absolutely. I about a decade ago, I discovered that there was a John Maxwell leadership certification that you can become. John Maxwell is like the guru of leadership in the entire world. He's had over 100 books that he's published, and I started reading his books in the 90s, and I discovered I'm going to go out and get certified in leadership to be doing what I do, is coaching, mentoring, leading young people. And I met somebody through there who ended up being her track in her life was writing and publishing books. And she invited me a couple of years ago to be a part of this project called Serving from the Heart, where there's 8 of us, 8 authors, co-authors, who wrote this book called Serving from the Heart. And it's all about our journey to being servant leaders. Mm-hmm. And what was great about it, Joey, is we all came from different backgrounds. Mm-hmm. I was in the nonprofit camping world. There's somebody from the medical field. There's somebody whose life was all about education. There's, one of the people on one of the authors is somebody whose family's owned a furniture business for 75 years. I think I mentioned somebody from the military. So we all came from different perspectives and backgrounds, serving people in different capacities. but we all ended up with the same kind of ultimately the same kind of goals that we became servant leaders, and that's been the best part of it. So, servant leadership isn't something that you master in the classroom. It's not a theory you memorize. It's truly something you live. And Serving from the Heart, this book, was our journey towards that. And we just celebrated our first anniversary of the book being out on Valentine's Day. So it's been out for a year. The publishers asked us to do a follow-up book now. So we're working on a book on resilience for young people, and not only did we have the pleasure of doing this first book, we're working on a second one. So,
okay, all right. So talk a little bit more about leading from the heart.
So service, really begins on the inside, and before I can lead anyone else, you have to lead yourself, and you check your ego at the door, and one of the things that I always ask myself whenever I was in a leadership situation, whether I was supervising cabin leaders and activity leaders at camp, or working with a board of directors in a nonprofit organization, or through my church or whatever. Again, you check your ego at the door, and you go, why am I acting this way? Why do I need to win this conversation? Why am I pushing so hard right now? And the lessons that came for me was that servant leadership really demands humility. It requires thoughtful reflection. A lot of times it requires that you have restraint, the strength to not to speak when you want to, or the courage to apologize when you don't want to, when you've said the wrong thing. The first work of servant leadership isn't managing others. It's really managing yourself and your own character. One of the things I've known about relationships, is that relationships will always matter more than control. So my thought on that is that, when you're the kind of leader that is demanding and directive, and you're trying to control every minutia of everything that everybody does, you're not going to be successful. You're going to strain relationships. You're going to make people upset. You're not going to be an easy person to work with. It's easy in any organization to kind of hide behind policies and procedures. If you're that kind of leader, it feels safe, it's clean, it's clear. But for me, leadership has become more than about that kind of control. It's about the connections that I have with people from one person to another. And Joey, over and over again, I've seen that people don't change because they've managed well. They change because they feel known, because someone took the time to listen to them, because someone believed in them before they believed in themselves. That was modeled for me early on in my career. And then I found that's the way that I really want to be for other people. And people really, it's you can have all the plans and organization you want, but people will always, people will trump your plans, and trust outperforms techniques. Influence lasts longer than authority. And finally, growth comes through failure. I wish I could tell you that to say that leadership is a straight path forward. It's not. It's messy. It includes mistakes. It includes moments where you wish you can redo. And I've come to look at those moments as truly as gifts. Working in a summer camp setting is powerful because it creates this really safe space to fail. You go off to camp for 8 or 10 weeks of the summer, and you're in this bubble, in this confined zone where, it's 24/7 for 10 weeks. And so you've got kids, you've got leaders, you got your staff, and your staff team really tries, they can try something. And if it doesn't work, if a program falls flat, it's a hard conversation. When a hard conversation doesn't go as planned, instead of of shaming people, there's reflection. Instead of blame, there's growth. And I mentioned that we're working on a book on resilience, and it's really a way to grow and to be resilient. Resilience is built in those spaces, especially in a lab like a summer camp setting can really provide for folks. And wisdom is forged there. Real leadership isn't formed in comfort; it's formed in the comeback. So, if I had to sum up what servant leadership, what I know about servant leadership, it's real, it's relational, it's rooted in character, and it's in learning by doing. It's not about control; it's about service, and it's not about position. It's about being present for other people. And it truly has been the work of my life. Obviously, I just had a great call the other day, Joey. Somebody that I work with 16 years ago called me out of the blue to ask me some advice about a current situation that they're working in, and it was wonderful. This person said, "Oh wow, you spoiled me for everybody else. I haven't had a leader like you in anywhere else that I've worked," and which I'm honored to hear that from them. But I'm also, it's clear to me that the world needs more servant leaders, that we need to really engage and make this. And that's what the book talks about is, serving from the heart and kind of walking people through that. There's questions in the books. There's places that you can take notes and write up in it. And again, it's not just my story. There's 8 of us in there who have contributed to being servant leaders in our own capacity.
Okay. So what does it take to be a service leader artisan?
So, I joke about being a servant leader artisan, and because our artisan is somebody that exhibit, somebody who works with their hands and creates things. Well, being a servant leader, you don't always create a particular item, but you create a community. And like any kind of art, Joey, you are always working at molding it, creating it, making it better, and taking what you learn from one piece to the next. I think about at summer camp, we a couple of my camps, we had kind of pottery class and that sort of thing, with the clay and the wheel, or the spinning tables, so that you can make molds and different things, and then you fire them in the kiln. And that was not something that I could do. I don't have the capacity. Really, what I don't have, Joey, is the patience to sit there and create something like that. So I always admire folks who are artisans, who can do things like that. And I think about, when you create a community, when you're working with people, there's an art to it as well. And so that's what I mean about being a servant leader artisan. Is it's something that you don't perfect, you work on it your entire life. And so however you choose to lead, whatever kind of style you want to emulate as a leader. Um, where I would argue servant leadership is the best way. Um, and God knows, you just watch anything on the news and social media in this day and age, and you go, "Oh my gosh, why would somebody lead like that?" It just I won't get into any kind of politics or world affairs or anything like that, or religion, because it's so it's a crazy mixed up world out there. But again, servant leadership, becoming a servant leader artisan, is something that you work at your entire life. You don't just say, well, this worked for me one time, and therefore I will do the exact same thing every single time. If you're going to make a cookie mold and use that for everything that you do, or you're going to make one of those molds out of clay, and it looks exactly the same every single time, great. But when you're working with other people, you don't want them to be a mold or a cookie cutter of one another. They're all individuals, and they have to grow and learn and become. So, that's where I get the artisan concept for when I say that. I even made up a wooden badge with my name on it that says servant leadership artisan, because it's an art. It's something that every single person that you're leading, you lead to what they need, not to what you need. And that's the service capacity part of it.
Okay. Now, in reference to being a service leader, a servant leader, explain the difference within the qualities of being a servant leader in reference to authority and influence.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I wrote a story about a situation where I had two program directors at camp that led different aspects. So you have the cabin leaders and the activity areas, and then program directors who supervise those people, and they work for it. And Joey, I had one that was very servant leader minded, and one that was very much about hierarchy. What I say goes. What I'm doing, you're listening to, and you don't interrupt. When we have to go do something in camp, you're going to do it as exactly the way I say it. And the servant leader model is more of, okay, here are our options. Here's what we're going to do, or here's some ideas about what we can do. Who would like to contribute to what? It's more about asking and leading from the middle, and bringing people along with you, than as opposed to that hierarchy mode where you're leading from the top. You're telling everybody what to do. It's that cult of personality that well, we're doing what he said because that's what he said, and what ends up happening is, those two styles can conflict and clash. And I remember at camp one evening, as campers and cabin leaders are all heading off to their cabins for the evening, these two clashed in verbally, not in a fisticuffs sort of physical way, because the guy who is the cult of hierarchy, the cult of personality leader, was putting one of the other activity people down, and he was it wasn't bullying outright, but he was saying, well, you're not getting the kind of reaction you want because, and he started telling him what he should be doing and how he should be doing it. It's like, well, no, and the other leader, the servant leader, he said, he stepped in and he said, no, that's not how we treat people here. And so it was like this really stark display of the differences in people and how different the two leadership styles are. Does that give you a sense of the servant leader versus somebody who believes in hierarchy?
Okay. Also, what is a true servant leader? What does it require?
It requires, putting yourself aside and being of service to other people. It just the example comes obviously. Well, I don't know if it's obvious. As Joey, I'm a faithful person. I'm a religious person. So the original servant leader was Jesus Christ as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you believe in Jesus as a in a religious way or a historical way, the examples of the stories that are in the Bible are about being of he was of service to other people. He was healing people. He was caring for people. He would serve people food. He'd wash people, his apostles' feet. He put himself aside so that other people can be better. And he was that kind of an example. So, what does it take? It takes putting yourself last, and there's some other great books, I don't know if you've, there's so many great leadership books. Leaders Eat Last was a book. I think that was the title. And I'm going to forget the author, but he was a captain in the Navy. Mm-hmm. And how he, got assigned one of the worst ships in the Navy, and he turned it around and made it one of the best places to work in the entire Navy, because his attitude was, if you're a leader, everybody eats first. Everybody goes before you do. You make sure that everyone is taken care of before you take care of yourself. Now, it's not that you don't take care of yourself. Obviously, you have to be okay. You can't be sick and helping serve other people. You can't be ignoring yourself. But you get my point, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Al froze on us a moment.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah. Go ahead and continue what you were doing, or were you finished?
I think that's my point about, being of service to other people and being, that kind of leader, finding that, ultimately, relationships matter more than control and procedures. Where true leadership is refined is again through those mistakes you make, the second chances, the resilience, the learning. Servant leadership is real. It's relational, it's character based, it's learning by doing, and it's shaped through lived experience, really intentional reflection, and a deep commitment to serving others over controlling, trying to be a controlling person. It's been that kind of work. And again, I had, the benefit of learning this from some amazing people in my life as well. And I talk a little bit about it in the book. And it's really, about the kind of character you want to be. And, I tell people all the time, I have 3 kids, Joey. They're all adults at this point in time. They all grew up living at camp with me, and then some of them working at camp with me as well. And one of the things I want them, when they think about integrity and being a good person, I want them to think of me as an example of that. And, it just, you don't learn this easily. Early in my career, if I could tell a quick story.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah. Early in my career, and I think I talk about this in the book just a little bit. Um, I thought that being that top-down leader was the way you do things. So I think I was 25, 26 years old. I was leading a camp in Southern California in the mountains, and I believe that if I asserted authority strongly enough, people would follow me. It's just, because I was the director, I had the title, this is what you have to do. And I followed the advice of someone who was that kind of leader. Regrettably, I followed that advice. And one of the things that that leader said to me is that when we arrive at camp, we always have a week or 10 days of training and orientation before camp starts to make sure everybody understands their job and all that sort of stuff. Well, this guy told me, and again, I kind of looked up to him, and he told me, you need to hire somebody that you're going to fire during your staff training week just to make a point. And I thought, well, yeah, that makes sense. I'll feel like a boss then. And sure enough, Joey, I hired somebody, and I knew, he was kind of a screw up. And I knew that, okay, this is the guy that, I'm going to fire during staff training week to make sure that everyone listens to me and that my authority is exerted.
Okay.
And sure enough, he screwed up. I fired him on the spot. We sent him home. As soon as I fired him, I went in the bathroom and threw up. I felt sick to my stomach.
Wow.
It was an awful feeling. And Joey, I didn't learn from that example that year. I did that 5 or 6 more years before it got through to me that I was pushing people down, that I was leading by intimidation. And I thought, well, no, this isn't working. And it finally occurred to me, I need to lift people up. I would need to serve them to make them, and I never did that again. And I regret having to do that. And leading from fear will create compliance for a moment, but over time it destroys the culture of the group, of the organization. It took me years to realize that wasn't who I wanted to be. And again, it was about serving from that inner character and becoming that kind of person that never did that again.
Okay. So you also explain in the book why failure is essential in leadership growth. Can you expand on that?
Well, like the example I just talked about, leading from that failure moment, from learning, how not to do things. I've learned, and I've had some of the greatest supervisors who are incredible servant leaders. And then I've had, some supervisors who were awful human beings, and who thought that intimidation and that's where the guy I talked about that I took that advice from. I learned more about how I didn't want to be by his failure than how I wanted to be through my own failure. It was watching somebody, and working for somebody that, and Joey, I ended up, at that time, again, I was in my mid to early, I got fired from that job, from that YMCA, because I wasn't complying to that kind of standard, to being that kind of leader. And it was huge. And I could have gone off and, worked elsewhere and decided that that's the way you have to be. But no, I decided that I'm going to be the better leader. And, it just, unfortunately in my career, in 45 years, I was fired from 2 different organizations, because of that very thing. I didn't want to conform with being, that the top down leadership. You got to crack the whip and make people. I'd rather lift people up and make them better, give them the tools that they need to do their job, and then get out of their way so that they can do their job, so that they can do their work. So really, the learning from your mistakes. I made mistakes, and ultimately I paid the price in two different jobs, and it never occurred to me that there was a different way to behave after a certain point in time. I just knew, okay, fire me. I'd rather be fired than work for somebody who displays that kind of leadership.
Okay, and another thing that you explain also, how can these servant leaders create ownership and accountability?
It really, when you get people to buy into what they're doing, they, accountability becomes kind of, it just follows suit. If you get somebody who's, again, I go back to that example I had about the servant leader and the hierarchical leader at camp when they had that conflict, that story. Um, the servant leader really got people to buy in and do things that they didn't know they were capable of doing.
Okay.
Because he empowered their growth, their personality, their their desire to perform better.
Mm-hmm.
And so accountability just follows suit.
Okay.
Where that hierarchical leader, it was that cult of personality, do it my way or don't do it at all. And when you're working with young people, don't do it at all is, okay, fine, I'll go home. Why should I come back to this?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so there was a, kind of, when you're leading like that, more people today, the statistic that I've read recently, not just in summer camps, in any industry, Joey, 65% of people quit their job because of their leader and not because of their pay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine that you're so upset, you're so downgraded and upset about the work that you're doing because your boss, your supervisor is, someone who really doesn't motivate you.
Right.
I mean, if you're gonna, be telling people do it X, Y, Z day in and day out, and don't alter the way you do this in any way, shape, or form. Just do it the way I'm telling you to do it. That really makes a difference. That's demotivating. So servant leadership really is a way to motivate people, to create accountability.
Okay. So my last question in reference to it is, can it be tweaked?
Oh, it's yeah, it's constantly tweaking. It's one of the things about servant leadership is it's situational leadership. You when you have somebody that's new, you're telling them a lot of what they need to do to be able to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
And then you move to kind of selling them that they're not only doing it, they're doing it well. And then, so you go from telling to selling, to oh my gosh, and now I forgot the four stages. Telling to selling. Give me a minute.
Mm-hmm.
um,
I threw a curveball at you at this one.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Telling to selling to being supportive, to coaching. Those are the four layers of it. When somebody's new, you're telling them a lot of what the job is and how to do it. Then you're coaching them along. You're moving them along to kind of selling it that they can do the job, and their self-esteem starts to grow, and they really start to do more on their own, and then they get motivated, and they're really pushing their way to all the different ways, the different aspects of their job, and to ultimately they're performing, and you're just giving them feedback on occasional basis. And again, summer camp being that lab of 8 or 10 weeks of summer, you're with people 24/7 working together. It really provides that perfect laboratory for that kind of group work, where you move people through those 4 different stages in a really fast environment. And it's always changing. It just, no matter what plans you have, you're going to have a rainy day and you got to change what you're doing. You're going to have a kid who gets hurt and you got to get them to the health lodge to see the nurse, or got to get the nurse to see the kid. All the different things that happen on day in and day out. It's always evolving. It's always changing.
Okay.
And you can apply that again to any job that you have. Whether you work at Walmart or you work in a big corporation in Silicon Valley, it's the methods don't change. It's how you lead people depending on where their needs are.
Okay. So one thing I kind of was thinking about is, in reference to possibly even probably being a better servant leadership, is if a leader was observing one of their staff members and they noticed that the staff member is doing something different that they kind of like, and they want to entwine it into their training. Do you ever get feedback like that?
Oh, absolutely. I call those moments in camp the informal leaders. They may not have a title, but they're doing something. And, it just, if you're seeing somebody doing something well, you want to really emphasize that. Like I said, you have different camps with different leaderships, kind of that organizational tree, and I've worked at camps where we had 10 or 11 people, and I've worked at a camp where we've had 60 employees, 70 employees. And so it really, fits in any kind of model. But my point is that, you'll have somebody who's really doing well in something, and you want to catch them doing things well, because that's motivating. That's really smart. Back to my example of me firing somebody during staff orientation. That's the opposite. That's the negative of, you're catching somebody doing something wrong, and you're being that kind of person where, no, please don't do it that way. You shouldn't do it that way. It just, you're a bad person because you've behaved poorly, as opposed to, hey, look at the way Joey's doing it. Let's see if the rest of us can do that as well. Not only are you lifting up that individual, you're, getting others to join in and do that kind of, improve what they're doing and doing it better. So,
okay. All right. So what's next outside of the book that the next book? What's next for Al Ferreira?
Oh, well, I like I said, I do some coaching with individuals around the country. who have worked with me or worked through with me. One of the things I've been working on right now is, there's Joey, there's 20,000 summer camps and outdoor environmental education centers in the United States, and so I'm working on helping them develop individual camps develop character values programming at their camps. Right now, I'm working with a camp here in New York that works with it's a family camp program where the whole family goes off to camp, but the families are families who have kids who have mental health challenges. And so I'm helping them develop some best practices and also put to work. They do a lot of skill building at that camp. I'm putting some of the character values into what they're doing, or helping them guide them through that process as well. So I'm semi-retired, but at the same time, I keeping my hand in different things. I have my blog, Al Ferreira Coaching, that I write on. It just we're approaching sometime in the next month. We're going to hit 200,000 viewers on the blog, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Again, I'm working on this resilience book, and what I enjoy the most is yesterday, for example, I spent the day with that family camp program. They had a day session at a nearby state park here in New York, where they went sledding. And so I organized the activities, the meals, the sledding, the permitting, and the program, and again the character values of the program that they spent the day doing together. So it was fantastic. I got to be outside, got to see families in action, So that's kind of what I do, and when I do things is I'm at that stage in my life where I can choose what I get to do, and so I'm choosing to do things that I truly enjoy doing, spending time with my family. I have our first grandchild was just born. He's 3 months old, 3 months and a day. That's how I spend my time so I write, I do some consulting and coaching, and I enjoy my family.
Okay. And so how can people reach out to you if they want to, learn to be a servant leader?
It just, my email is alf@camp@gmail.com. So ALF@ATCAMP@gmail.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Al Ferreira on LinkedIn. I have my blog, Al Ferreira Coaching. If you want to get a copy of the book, it's I think you have it up on the screen, the clippy.com, which is the publisher, /Al_Ferreira. So, and you can see my life story and order a book there. I'll send it off to you autographed and the whole thing. So,
all right.
I appreciate you putting that on the screen as well, Joey.
Yeah. All right. And so reach out to Al any which way you can. You got the LinkedIn. You got the website that I have up there for which actually is where I got the information that you see in the video description, and and how I introduced them and everything, because that's all on there as well. I just don't have the website on the screen, in the video description, but it's right. It's here on the screen. So, you can reach out and get his books, including the future book that comes out on resilience. Al, you're welcome to come back on here anytime, you want to update or, anything else to promote. And everybody else, thank you so much for watching the Life with Joey Calvo podcast. God bless you all.
Thanks so much, Joey. God bless you.